Unless you specifically ask them not to, at least 7 times during your 7-day cruise, someone that you've just met will be coming into your cruise cabin. You're usually carrying with you thousands of dollars worth of clothing and jewelry and cash and cameras and computers. And so it begs the question, when it comes to these high dollar items, these hard to replace items, what do you do with them while you're cruising? Do you leave them out in your cabin or do you hide them? I'll answer the question. I tend to hide them, and so I wanted to share with you today my list of things that I hide in my cruise cabin. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Lido, Loca. I am your host, Tony, here with a conversation that I hope we find helpful as cruisers. This one's going to be completely interactive. I'm going to tell you the things that I hide on a cruise ship, but I would love to hear the things that you hide on a cruise ship. And let me say this on the front end. This is not disparaging to crew members. I certainly don't think that crew members are out there trying to steal from us. I certainly think that if there are crew members that are prone to stealing, they would be discovered and that the cruise lines would deal with them. But just from a best practice, a peace of mind kind of thing, I wanted to share with you the things that I hide in my cruise cabin opposed to leaving them out. Number one, cash. I am someone who tests the fates in the casino, and on almost every cruise, I have cash with me. A lot of times I'll come in from a casino session late night, ready to go to bed, and I'll just slap my cash on the desk there in the cruise cabin. But when I wake up the next day before anybody comes into the room, I make sure that I stow the cash in my cruise cabin. Make sure that it's not in plain sight. I think this is just a best practice anywhere that you're at. One of those things that are going to get you in trouble in life is if you flash a lot of cash, whether it's on the street, whether it's at a store, whether it's in your cruise cabin. The thing I hide, number one, I keep my cash hidden. The second must hide thing in your cruise cabin is your travel documentation, whether it be your passport or your birth certificate. I would not leave this laying around so that you could casually knock it off of your desk, lose it in a pile of clothes, that kind of thing. When it comes to travel documentation, when it comes to your passport specifically, this is the one item you are definitely going to need to return home from your cruise. This might be the one item that you need to get off at a cruise port, and this is the one item that under no circumstance do you want to lose, because the replaceability factor is a challenge. You can get your passport expedited and replaced quickly, but you don't want to do that in an emergency. You don't want to have to do that because you've lost it and you need it to get back into the country. So one of the first things that I try to secure and find a spot for in my cruise cabin is my passport. I guess before we go any further in the list, we should talk about some of the hiding places. When it comes to cash, when it comes to the passport, I typically use the cruise safe. Now, I know people out there that don't want to use the cruise safe at all because they don't feel like the cruise safe is safe. The cruise line does have the ability to open the safe no matter what magic code that you put into it, and there are multiple people on the cruise ship that will have access to open up your safe, and so maybe you don't want to put your valuables in the safe. If the safe is problematic for you, there certainly are other options. You can bring your own travel safe. I like this one because it has a cable that you can take with you, so you could take it out to your beach day and attach it to something. This is an interesting way to secure your valuables, and then you can be even more discreet about it by using a book safe. And as the name describes, this is a safe that looks like a book. These are not foolproof systems either. With the book safe, you need to keep up with a key. With the travel safe, you need to remember the combination. These are both a couple good options if you don't feel safe using the safe in your cruise cabin. I'll leave a link to both of these items in the description below. So that brings me to number 3 on the list, jewelry. If you have chosen to bring expensive jewelry on the cruise ship with you, don't leave that out in plain sight. You have to get yourself in a ritual of, when you remove the jewelry, of putting it in a safe place and putting it in a place where you know where it is going to be. Potentially another best practice when it comes to cruising is to not bring any expensive jewelry at all. Maybe invest some money in some nice costume jewelry and leave the real authentic jewelry at home, the real gold, the real diamonds at home, so that you don't risk losing it on a cruise ship. And another thing that I've learned from experience, if you or your significant other has earrings that you like to wear a lot, make sure you bring some extra earring backs. I've been in more than one scenario where a favorite pair of earrings is no longer the favorite pair of earrings because the back has gone missing. Finding a replacement on a cruise ship Not the easiest thing to do. Fourth thing I try to hide on a cruise is my camera gear. Normally I'm traveling with several $1,000s worth of camera equipment, and those are things that I don't want to go missing while I'm on the cruise ship. So I definitely have a ritual on all of my cruises to make sure that I put my camera gear in the same place, and I make that a part of my routine. Now before we get to the next one on the list, let's diverge just a little bit. I have seen this picture floating around. It's a pretty poor quality picture. I've seen this picture floating around of a messy cruise cabin, and it made me wonder how many people pre-clean their cabin before the room steward comes in to clean their cabin. Hand up, I'm a pre-cleaner. As you can tell from this list, I like to make sure that everything is tucked away, stowed away, not out. I want to leave the room with as little of my personal effects around anywhere that the person cleaning the room has to deal with. I don't leave anything on the bed. I try not to leave anything in the sink area. I try to make sure that I have that put up. I try to have the desk organized. The least amount of times that somebody has to touch my stuff, in my mind, the easier it is for them, and also it minimizes the risk of the stuff that they have to go through and they have to touch, falling on the floor, coming up missing, that kind of thing. I'm a pre-cabin cleaner, but I don't know that everybody is. I would love to hear your feedback on that. Do you tidy up the cabin before the room steward comes in to tidy up the cabin? Leave a comment below. The next item on my list is clothing, or clothing I don't want anybody to see. Primarily, I'm talking about my underwear. I try not to leave my underpants out in the cruise cabin. I try to make sure that they're tucked away in a cubby or in a closet or something like that. And the one big reason for that is I would assume that the cabin steward does not particularly want to handle someone else's underpants, clean, dirty, whatever. I'm going to make sure that mine are put up so somebody doesn't have to deal with that. Back to what we were talking about a minute ago, when the room steward is cleaning the cabin, I don't want that person to have to move my underpants around because I left them in a place where they have to tidy up. So go ahead and hide your underpants, stash your underpants in your cruise cabin. Let me lay one more on you. It's related to the camera equipment. Same thing for my computer equipment, my laptop, my iPad, my Kindle, my Nintendo Switch, any of these handheld devices that I'm bringing, I don't leave them just laying around in my cabin when I'm not in the cabin. I make sure that I find a place to stash them, a place to hide them, a place where nobody's going to go digging through. Again, you have an investment in these items. Not that anybody would be looking to steal these items, but again, you don't want them getting knocked onto the floor or moved around, that kind of thing. And look, I get it. At the end of the day, this may be a little too stringent. This may be a little too paranoid, but what I'm advocating is building a good cruising habit of keeping the things that are important to you, the things that you need to be able to find quickly, secured and stowed in a way where you have access to them, where they're not a temptation to anyone else, and where at the end of the cruise you will be able to leave with all of the stuff that you brought onto the cruise. Well, except maybe for your testing the fates money. Sometimes you leave with extra, sometimes you don't leave with extra, but that's a whole nother video. Thank you so much for checking out the show today. Please subscribe for more cruising content. This is Tony for Lido Loca, and until the next time, we'll see you on the Lido.